Sun beats down, hot ground is rough. Farmer's Tan podcast got me feeling tough. Sweating through the days, ain't no broken plan. Talking with the folks.
Hey, this is Jake, and here a little while ago I had the opportunity to go back to my old FFA chapter and have a little visit with them at their FFA banquet. Now, I know this isn't exactly what we put on the Farmer Tan podcast usually, but I thought it turned out pretty well, and I thought I might share it with you guys. Hope you enjoy it. Bye. All right, good evening, Fairbury FFA. How are you guys doing tonight? Good. Glad to hear that everybody is doing well. My name is Ryan Fairley. I grew up on a dairy farm north of town here a little ways. My folks still milk out there. And I grew up around here, but now I call the Gothenburg-Brady area home. And, honestly, dairy cows is good motivation to move 3 hours away. In fact, it's still a little close from time to time. But I tell you what, it was good to come back down here. I am a graduate of FHS. I got out of here in 2002. I was a member of the Fairbury FFA while I was here. And as I was coming down the driveway tonight and getting ready to turn into the parking lot, there's just all these old memories that are coming back. Some things have changed, some things haven't. One of the things that has not changed is just as you pull into the parking lot, there's this big green grass island there right by the yield sign, which is where I parked a lot when I was a senior in high school. And I might still be in trouble with Mr. Kuyat for that a little bit. So I didn't park there. I parked where you were supposed to, but it is good to be back. I am here tonight because of an FFA advisor that I had back when I was in high school, somebody who pushed me beyond my boundaries, got me to do something that I really didn't want to do. And that's part of what brought me here tonight. And we'll get into a little bit of that later. But for a moment here, there is FFA chapters all over this country that would die to have an advisor who was as plugged in as your guys's are. And you've got two of them, right? They like to teach. They like to be involved in ag. They like to instruct, but they love you guys. They believe in you guys, and they believe in helping educate the future generation of leaders, whether you're involved in ag or a business that supports ag, or whether you're not even going to go into ag in the future, but you're going into something where there needs to be some leadership. They believe in that much. So put your hands together for Mrs. Holly and Mr. Dukes quick. They are phenomenal role models, and I hope you don't take that for granted because they really do believe in you guys. All right, so we come from the Gothenburg area. If you don't know where that is, get on Interstate 80, and you just start heading west till you get to Kearney, and then you go like another 45 minutes beyond that. There's a little town right off the interstate called Gothenburg. A little town farther than that called Brady. We live in between the two, south side of the interstate, south side of the Platte River up against the hills. Little slice of heaven there. It is great row crop area, great ranching area. And so my wife and I, we do a little bit of, we grow a fair amount of irrigated hay out there. We have a cow-calf operation, so we do a little ranching. My wife has been employed at a feed store in Gothenburg for many years, and earlier this spring, we had the opportunity to buy that, and so we own and operate the feed store in Gothenburg. And when we're not busy doing that, we're going to baseball games, we're riding dirt bikes, we're doing, whatever it is that our boys are into, loud, messy, dirty, noisy, and that kind of stuff, and we have a pretty good time with that. One of the things I do in my spare time, first of all, when you get to this point in life, you have to schedule your spare time so that it happens. One of the things I do, a good friend of mine, we do a podcast, and stand by for shameless self-promotion in 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody, this is Jake in the 308 from the Farmer Tan podcast. If you are looking for a mildly informative, mildly entertaining podcast to pass the time while you drive, I highly encourage you to tune in to the Farmer Tan podcast on all major podcast platforms. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio. We do some stuff on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok. All right, that's it. That's my plug. I appreciate you indulging me there for a second. The reason I bring that up, though, is that goes all the way back to my FFA experience. So I had an FFA advisor who said, hey, we have this ag communications contest. I think you would be good for that. I would really like you to do it. And I said, no, I don't really want to, partially because I didn't know anything about it and mostly because I was lazy. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And she said, no, you are, because I already signed you up and you're going to do it. The first year was an article, like newspaper style writing competition. You went to a mock press conference, got all the information you needed, wrote an article for the paper, and I did very well in that contest. I actually ended up winning state that year, and I really enjoyed that. I actually write for the newspaper back home periodically when they need a little something about the ag industry. I do a little something there. The next year, she said, okay, you've done that one. Now you need to do the ag broadcasting one. And I said, no, I don't want to do that because I was even more lazy than I was the year before. And she said, no, you're going to do it. I think you would be good at it. So I went ahead and did that. We got to go down to UNL. We got to go in their broadcast production booth. They showed us how to run it all. We got to cut our own radio spots and turn that in. And I did fairly well at that. Ended up getting second at that year. And but that was something that I really enjoyed doing. And so now fast forward to today, I have the opportunity to come down here and speak to you guys, but I do this podcast. It kind of scratches that itch. I get to be creative a little bit. I get to hang out with a buddy of mine, and we just get to have some fun doing that sort of thing. But that all comes back to that contest when I was in your shoes and just having the ability to try something that I might have not tried on my own. So one thing that I want to talk to you real quick, where are my seniors at? Students, not citizens. Yeah. Yep, there's one. Citizen. Do you feel like you have enough information to take the next step in your life, whether that's going on in education, whether it's going into the workforce? Do you feel, not that you know everything, but do you feel like you're prepared to take the next step? I got a couple no's, maybe a couple yeses. Okay. All right. That's fair, right? When I was in your position, I knew absolutely everything. They've added a few things, and so I don't know it all anymore. But when I was your age, I did. If you are hoping that I pull it all together here in 20 minutes for you, I am really sorry about that. I am filling the gap between supper and when you get your awards, but I do have a couple of things that I would like to touch on. One of them, and this is an important skill, I would like you to challenge yourself to learn how to think critically. Critical thinking is a skill. It can be learned. You can practice at that, and you can become better as you work on it. I got a little story for you. So we're doing this podcast, right? Some of the stuff we do with it, we take clips, we put them out on YouTube. It's kind of fun. We just mess around. My buddy Jared was feeding cattle this winter, and we got a snow. It was like the only snow we had all year. And he was going up this hill, and it finally got snow packed, and it was a lot of work to pull the feed wagon up this hill. So he had a two-wheel drive 7800 Deere. He had to make a run at this hill with the feed wagon to get up it. And one day he went, that'd probably make pretty good stuff for YouTube. So he recorded himself in the cab, bahaing up this hill full bunny. He narrated the whole thing, put it out on YouTube. What is interesting, and I did not know this until he did it, but we are complete idiots. Complete idiots. Can you believe that? I found that hard to believe. I know that because there was probably 185 people that took time out of their day to tell us what a bunch of idiots we actually were. The funny thing about that is YouTube does not care what the comment is. Comments, interactions with that post drive the algorithm, right? So their hate was actually making us more popular. So who's the idiots, right? I tell you that story because we did get some advice that made sense. We had a lot of people telling us, hey, you need to put tire chains on the tractor. Well, yeah, that probably makes sense, but we're not interested in throwing steel for 4 days out of the year. Plus, he needed to run down the highway to feed another pen, and he wasn't wanting to tear up the road with tire chains. We weren't going to do that. I really appreciated the guy that said, you really need to back up the hill. That'd work better. Right. If you've ever backed a tractor up a slick hill, if you've ever backed a feed wagon, if you've ever backed a feed wagon with a tractor up a slick hill, you know that that's not reasonable. But my all-time favorite one was the guy that went, why don't you put the tires on the tractor that are meant for the tractor? Right. Because what other tires were we going to put on it? Okay, whatever. I bring this up because here's the deal. In today's modern world, in the social media world that we live in the 24-hour news cycle that we live in, it is really easy to end up in the crowd. And you're just kind of going this way because this is where everybody is headed. And it might lead you to say something, do something, be part of something that maybe you don't necessarily believe in. It's just what everybody else is doing in the moment. The thing about it is that everybody assumes they farm like we farm. Everybody else is farming the same way I'm farming out in Gothenburg, you're doing it here. Except that's not true. Everybody ranches like I ranch. Everybody runs a feed store like I run a feed store. Everybody coaches baseball like I coach baseball. It must be sunny out there because it's sunny back here. But that's not true. And you may not have enough information to make a judgment on what's going on. And so my encouragement would be keep an open mind, learn as much as you can. And if you have something helpful to pass on, by all means, do it. I highly encourage you to formulate your own opinion, but don't be real quick to jump into a situation that you maybe don't have enough information about. Here's the thing, life is going to come at you really hard and really quick. I challenge you to make a decision what you believe in, what you stand for, and what your reputation is worth. Figure that out now. When you get to college, when you get out in the real world, when something happens that you don't have time to process and think about, because you've been practicing those values the whole way, you already know where you stand. You're not going to find yourself in a bad situation making a bad decision because you already understand what you're about. Think about it this way. There is enough hate in the world already, right? We don't got to go hating on people just to hate on people. If you disagree with what they're doing, but it doesn't really matter, why take time out of your day to call a couple of idiots from Gothenburg an idiot, right? Like, our friends already know that. They don't need your input, right? If you were a tree living in a forest and you're about half grown, right? And you're looking at all these other tall trees and you're thinking, man, I wish I was tall like they are. Well, there's a couple ways to be the tallest tree in the forest. You can either soak in all the nutrients, all the knowledge that you need to be determined to grow, to be tall like the rest of the trees, or a lumberjack can come in and cut down all the tall trees, and now by default, you are one of the taller trees. Think long and hard about cutting other people down to be one of the tallest trees. It doesn't get you as far as you think it might. Part of being able to critically think for yourself, and we're going to get into this a little bit more here in another point, but learn to just observe what is going on around you and then to think of that situation and wonder, why is this happening? In Gothenburg, Nebraska, you got two fast food places to eat. You got McDonald's and Runza. Now, Ronnie's is probably better than starving to death, but not by much. So most everybody goes to Runza. All right, we were busy at the store one day. My truck drivers were out. My wife was busy doing inventory stuff. The office gal was running the office. I'm just a salesman and I don't do much. So I thought, hey, I'm going to go out. That was a joke. Thank you. I'm going to go out and grab lunch for everybody. What's everybody want? They all said, hey, we want Runza. Great. Shot out of there at noon. Got to Runza. Runza's pretty popular. The line went all the way from the window where you pick it up, past the speaker where you order it, through the parking lot, and out onto the street. All right, fine. I understand how that works. They're good about getting people through. No big deal. I was the third vehicle in line out on the street. So I sat there, cycled through. I'm the next guy getting ready to pull into the parking lot. The two vehicles in front of me were pretty short. They were small cars. They were pulled up to the menu, to the speaker, one behind another, and it still left room for people to come in and pull into the parking lot and park to go in the store. A lot of people were doing that, and so I thought, well, I'll just stay back here instead of blocking the driveway. I was just about ready to pull in. There are two other vehicles behind me, and here comes this Tahoe. Right past us, pulls in. I think, oh, they must be going inside. Jumps in line right behind the car that I should have been behind. What did they think three vehicles were doing parked on the street? Enjoying the sunshine? Right? Pay attention to what's going on. I don't know if that's the same type of person who doesn't realize stop signs exist, but somebody gave them a license to drive, right? And suddenly, instead of being upset they cut in line, I was very glad they were ahead of me instead of behind me. Pay attention to your surroundings and just understand what's going on. Just so you understand that I'm not perfect. I wasn't overly observant one day, and I was deciding to be a little bit lazy. Here's the deal. We were getting ready to go to Thanksgiving. We needed to check one stock field of cows, pump water for them on the way. It was on the way to where we were going for Thanksgiving anyway. We'll hit that on the way. It'll save us all a bunch of time. Pull up to the edge of the field. Been doing this all winter, except we had the good pickup, not the chore pickup. Go to the back of the pickup to grab the axe. Axe does not exist, but there is a spade. I can make a spade work. Grab the spade. What the axe or the spade was for was to push the fence down so I could step across it to get to the well to pump the water, right? So I grabbed a spade. I pushed the fence down. I stepped over it. About here is where the spade and the hot wire had a severe disagreement in what needed to happen, right? Have you ever pushed a wire down that's under tension and then let go of it? It recoils at least as high as you had pushed it down, which was about waist high, right? So here comes this wire zipping up the handle of this spade, and in a split second, I needed to make a decision whether I was going to flee or fight. I was in no mood to fight an electric fence. It's time to flee. So with all the cat-like reflexes I could muster, I jumped straight up in the air, right? That's the best way to get away from this fence. But if you've ever been in a tough situation, you understand that your mind thinks of 1,000 things and your body can do about 3 of them. And my mind said, hey, you're going to come back down about the time the fence comes back up again, and we're going to have the original problem. So this isn't going to work. So I watched The Matrix. I understand that I can move horizontally in the air, which is what I decided to do. It worked about 30%. My top half went over here, but my bottom half's like still over the fence, right? And I think this is never going to work. So last ditch effort, throw this leg up, right? Try to get this leg up and over the fence. Well, it gets tangled up in the fence, but I am still up in the air, so I'm not getting shocked yet. I finally get untangled for the fence, hit the ground in a thud, and I do the same thing that every one of you have ever done when you do something silly and you fall down. You pop straight back up and look around to see if anybody saw you, right? Which is what I did. I did all of this right in front of the pickup. So when I stood up, I see my wife in the pickup laughing so hard. I mean, it was one of those like laughs where she's not even making noise. She's fighting for air. And I think, that's great. Go over, pump the water, get that done. Come back, walk get this, 20 feet to the insulator that I could have just put down the first time. Push it down, step over, pull it up, throw the spade in the back, get in. I had my good clothes on, right? That's why I didn't want to crawl under the fence to begin with. Now I'm covered in dirt and corn stalks and snow because, get in the pickup and she finally manages, why did you do that? To which my answer was, I don't know. Right? Be observant. Take the extra time. Maybe there is an easy option. Don't cut corners. That's what I was trying to do. See if there's an option that makes more sense. That's a little easier. All right. My second point this evening is don't just show up. Be present. Be present. Back in the day, you had to show up to your job every day. You had to work hard. You had to offer something to the team. If you managed to do that, you might be up for a promotion. At some point, somebody goes, hey, boss, I'd like a raise. And I go, well, you have been here 14 days this month. That's better than the other guy, I guess. Don't just show up. Be present. While you're being present, be in the moment, right? Enjoy serving whoever it is, your customers or the people you are working with or whatever that situation may be. But you'll be surprised at what a positive outlook and a positive point of self-view. Like if you think well of yourself, you treat other people well, you will be surprised at how far that will get you. I don't know. All right, younger people, help me out. Does the Buckle still exist? The store? Does the Buckle Challenge still exist? No. Okay. Back when I was in high school, part of college, we used to go to the Buckle. If you don't know, that's a clothing store that's in malls. They sell fancy clothes and stuff like that. The sales associates there are super, super friendly and super helpful and really ready to sell you a pair of pants that you don't really even need, right? The whole point of the Buckle Challenge was you walk through the mall, you get to the Buckle, you had to get to the back wall and touch it and get back out again without anybody saying, can I help you? There was a lot of different ways to do this. You could rush in and rush out, but then that sort of looked like you were thieving something with kind of gathered extra attention. You could sneak around the outside, but just when you thought you'd made it, somebody's like, welcome to the Buckle. Can I help you find something? No, you can't. Okay. First of all, if I'm actually here to buy something, I can pick out jeans without your input. I appreciate it, but I don't need the help. However, here's the thing, right? They were happy to be there. They were coached to be happy to see you, to be helpful, and to ask what they could help you with. Now, you know what? That is a little irritating when really all you want is a button-up shirt and you walk out with $5,000 worth of stuff. But think about the last time that you went somewhere and they weren't exactly happy to see you. I never really thought I'd be the coffee guy, but I am. All right, quick story. My youngest, Owen, I drink a lot of coffee. Owen drinks a little coffee, which is good because it keeps him a manageable size so I can still whoop him when he needs it. But he wanted to put all the foo-foo stuff in, and I said, bud, around here we drink black coffee because we are men, and that's what we do. Now, no offense to anybody who doesn't. That's what I told him, right? All right, time goes on. We have a coffee shop in Gothenburg. I really kind of like the place. They got some foo-foo stuff that I like, so I go down there and get it once in a while. He comes to the store after school one day, sees me with the cup of foo-foo stuff. He walks right up and he goes, and I thought we were men. Well played. I am a coffee guy once in a while. I was traveling for work. I was in a town I hadn't been in before. They had a coffee shop that I usually don't go to, but I thought, why not give this a try, right? So I walked in there. The young man behind the counter was like, hey. I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, fine, I guess. All right, Steve, can I get a large cinnamon latte with the foamy stuff you put on top? Do you want that hot or cold? Steve, it's -20 outside, man. Do you think I want a cold coffee? All right, maybe I did, but I didn't. Hot, please. Okay. It's going to be like $873 because those places are expensive, right? So I hand him my money. We get the coffee, whatever. He does the thing. He comes back to the counter. Large cinnamon latte, hot. Thanks, bud. Here's the thing, right? Like, it didn't have to go that way, but it did, and it sort of made me feel like I wasn't welcome there. So what I want you to think about, whatever you find yourself in going forward, you absolutely will deal with people. You might be dealing with customers, you might be dealing with coworkers, you might even be the customer, but a positive attitude and a positive outlook will gain a lot of positive attention, right? It's good for business. I said before, you need to pay attention to your surroundings. Just understand what is going on. People, you can be very perceptive to what somebody else is going through if you just pay enough attention to them to understand, right? I'm guilty of it too. We'll go out for dinner somewhere and maybe dinner. All right, dinner is at noon, right? Supper is in the evening. Yeah. Where's my evening supper, people? Okay. All right. So go out for dinner. That's lunchtime. I am guilty of sitting there, maybe while I'm waiting for food to come, to be scrolling through something. It's amazing how often you see that. Like, the people you're there with aren't interesting enough to talk to. Although I do wonder if sometimes they're texting each other, or maybe I don't know what happens with texting. Is it Snapchatting or what? Nothing. Okay. Nobody's willing to admit to what they're doing, but pay attention. You may notice somebody is off a little bit. All it takes is a kind word. Hey, man, what's going on? Is there something bugging you? But you got to be able to pay attention to people to know that. Here's the deal. One time I did not pay attention to my surroundings, which is partially why I bought a potload of Herefords. Hereford people, where you at? Couple, little bit. Nobody that's willing to really admit it, right? That should tell you something. So my wife and I, we bought a pot full of Herefords. Pot, aluminum cattle trailer that goes behind the semi pot, right? Pot full of Herefords. Actually, we bought more than that. So my wife and a friend took the pickup and horse trailer. They were going to have to haul about 10 of them back. I took the semi and the pot and a buddy of mine, and we went to get the rest. So we all go up there, we get them loaded, we're headed home. Life is great. It's your typical summer in Nebraska, early summer. Wind is blowing like 1,500 miles an hour. So we're fighting this wind. We're coming into Burwell. If you've ever come into Burwell, the road kind of does this number, and you sort of go through a cut, and then there's another big cut, and you head south downhill right into town, right? we get turned sideways about the time one of those big gusts of wind hits the side of the pot. And I mean, it's pushing us over here, right? It's early summer. It's the best season in the state of Nebraska, road construction season. The edge of the road is here and the edge of the earth is here, right? The sign said 50 mile an hour should be fine for that curve. They lied. Oh, they lied, because we were like 45 maybe. And I mean, it was everything we could do to keep that truck on the road. And you saw two dudes in the cab of that truck go like this. I mean, we were willing that thing to stay in our lane, right? And it was a fight. And we got it corralled, headed down the hill. Everything was fine. We pulled into town with this little number. We went and ate it like Runza, because that's what you do to celebrate almost dying but living through it. My wife's like, man, what's wrong with you guys? You look like you've seen a ghost. Like nothing. We just ground 4 inches off the far side step of that truck trying to keep it on the road. I tell you that to illustrate the point. Just pay attention to what is going on in life, to what's going on around you. Don't just show up. I was guilty that day of just showing up. I mean, I was paying attention, but we were talking, we were laughing. I was going through the motions, but I wasn't really paying attention. All right, the last thing. And you know you aren't going to get out of an FFA keynote speech without talking about leadership, right? Being a good leader is pulling together everything that we just talked about and putting it all together. What's your definition of a leader? Somebody shout it out. No leaders in here. Okay. This is timely. The thing about being a leader, a lot of times people say bosses, right? Boss is a leader. Boss can be a leader, right? But you've heard the old saying, like, too many bosses, not enough workers, or whatever version of that you've heard, right? The thing of it is some of the best leaders I have ever been around were coworkers. They were peers. They were people on my level, but they were somebody who was able to get the best out of the people that were around them. That's what makes a good leader. Your ability to get the most out of the person that's working along beside you, right? That makes a good leader. A good leader is motivating people to do their best by doing your best, right? You have some accountability. You have to live up to that. Your quality of work means something. Your word means something. You strive to be a good leader. And sometimes that means when you make a mistake, you have to own it, right? I've made 3 mistakes in my life. I actually thought I made 4, but I was wrong about the last. So I've just made 3. But you have to own that. And sometimes there's consequences that go with those mistakes. That's part of being a good leader. That's part of being in a position of leadership, is to own that when it doesn't go the right way. And it's hard to do, but if you're on a team and you're leading that team and your team does well, let your teammates have the credit for that. Build them up, right? And you might say, well, like, what if we got too many leaders and not enough people to do stuff? I don't buy that at all, right? Because you might be on a team, you might be in a group of people, and somebody has a skill set that is the perfect set of skills to solve that problem you're working on now. But you might end up with a different problem like a day or 2 or a week or a month or a year later that your skill set fits into, right? You can all be leaders in your own way. I will take an entire team full of leaders who are willing to work together, and we'll take over the world, man, right? So think, maybe you're needing to pitch a presentation, right? And there is somebody on your team that understands profit and loss. They understand cost of carry. They understand interest. They understand all this stuff that goes into business, mathematics, forward, backward. They know how to make that money. But you're the person that understands how to present that. And you work on that together as a team. You're the one that gets to go pitch that to the board, because you're the one that can make the board understand what you're trying to say, what your teammates put together for you. That's being a good leader. The best leaders never stop learning, right? You keep learning. One of the most dangerous phrases at any part of business that you'll ever be in is, we don't do it that way here. That's not how we do it around here. We tried that once back in the day and it didn't work. Sometimes there's legitimate reasons why you don't do stuff, but oftentimes it's because you're scared, because you're stubborn, or because nobody's thought of a new way. Keep learning. Find something valuable to bring back to the table. Learn how to build people up. Learn how to be that leader. All right. We've talked tonight about how to think for ourselves, how to be critical thinkers. We've talked about being present, not just showing up, not just holding down a chair. We've talked about how to be present. And then we've talked about how to pull that together and be a good leader. What I want you to remember tonight is if your main goal in life is to make as much money as possible, have as much power as possible, see your name in lights, man, life's going to be kind of hard because that's not what we were created for. But if your goal is to help people around you, to be the best version of themselves, to be a team player, to help somebody in need, you may be surprised at how many of those other things fall together. They just kind of fall into place. When you always do the right thing, those things fall into place. All right, one more. And it really has nothing to do with anything. It's just a fun story we're going to close with. Other than, I guess you could say, if you're going to jump in the middle of it, you better be sure you have somebody's back. All right. Once upon a time, I had a little red heeler named Beth. Beth dog was the best dog that has ever been created, ever will be created. Think of the best dog you've ever been around. She's 3.5 times better than that. All right. She was the best dog. I took this dog out. We were tagging calves. We were on the 4-wheeler. We were out on some rye pasture. I took her out with me. Now, sometimes mama cow don't exactly appreciate that. Dog is a predator. She just had a calf. It could be prey. She's not a big fan of that. Parked the 4-wheeler a ways off, told the dog to stay on the 4-wheeler, which she was good at doing. Went to tag this calf. Went up, grabbed the calf by the leg. It kind of got away, did the typical thing, had to chase it a minute. I was a little faster then, so I caught it quicker. Now I would just give up. But I got this calf caught, grabbed it by the leg, tipped it over, got it down, clipped the ear tag in its ear. Right as the tagger clicked, that calf went, brrr, which is translated into mom, right? I didn't have to look because I heard that unmistakable sound of hooves and I felt that hot breath on the back of my neck and I knew she was fixing to make a sandwich out of me. There was no reason to stand and look. I just took off in a straight line as hard as I could go. I hear her thundering behind me, and then out of this corner of my eye, I see this red flash. There's a little dog, right? Now, I don't know if she's what stirred it up to begin with, or if she went, hey, I got to help him, and got there and went, sorry, bud, you're on your own. But her philosophy in that moment was not, I need to save him. It was, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun the slowest camper, right? That's what she was living on, and away she went. And I was making this big old arc, trying to get back to that 4-wheeler, and I thought, this is no time for big arcs, right? I got to make a hard 90-degree turn. So I planted that left foot and went to make a cut. Yeah, well, rye pasture, it was kind of a damp day anyway, was slick, right? Left foot, left the chat. It kept doing foot things headed in that direction. I was trying to go in that direction. That put a lot of torque and a lot of stress on the right knee, which promptly crumpled up. And about that time, I hit the ground, that cow come by and boom, planted her head in the back of my back and just mashed me into the ground. And I thought, mercy, I have seen the end. That is not how I thought I was going to go out. I saw her come circle back around. She was going to tag me again. And all of a sudden, here comes this little dog. Pow! Right into the middle of that. She latched down on the nose of that cow. And I mean, that cow is bellowing. That dog is barking. And I think to myself, this is a great time to get out of here. So I hopped up. I ran back to my trusty steed that I have named Kawasaki. I hop on that thing. I hit the button. I jam it in gear and I mash the throttle. About the time that little dog jumps on the back of the 4-wheeler with red fur in her mouth, I grab her by the collar and we hit the road, right? We get about a safe distance away. I ruffle her ears. I tell her she's a good dog. I get out the calving book and I write mean next to green 781. Mean. Here's the thing. You might not do everything right, but if a buddy needs help, jump in there, right? You may be the help they need in that moment. All right. Fairbury FFA, I appreciate your time. I appreciate being here. You guys have a bright future ahead. I know that because I know your parents. I know your advisors. I know where you come from. You guys are going to make Fairbury proud. I know that. Go out and do your best. Thank you.